June 21st, 2022. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please call the roll.
Mayor Tompeck,
Here.
Vice Mayor Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Campo,
Here.
Commissioner Fender,
Here.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Here.
Okay, the first item we have tonight is from the proclamations and presentations section, is the ceremonial swearing-in of Officer Tara Luskovich. Close enough? Okay. And the chief,
Jaganowski, that's a good
the chief will do the honors.
This evening, we have the pleasure of swearing in a new officer of the Sewalls Point Police Department. The department knows we bear a responsibility to our citizens to find the best officers to serve the town of Sewalls Point. Our standards are high, and they should not be compromised. Tara Luskovich was born in Massachusetts 45 years ago. She graduated from high school in Massachusetts and relocated to Florida in the mid-90s with family. She was initially employed in banking, coincidentally right here in Sewalls Point, before she started her first police dispatching job. She's been employed in the law enforcement field for 20 years as a dispatcher before pursuing her career of becoming a police officer. And if nothing else, one of the things that Tara's kind of asked about is, she's a little bit older, graduate from the academy, how will I do? And the neat thing for her as a dispatcher is she already speaks our language. Something that you may have never thought about before is that when you hire somebody who's never been involved in law enforcement and has just gone to the police academy, imagine trying to learn an entirely new job, and you're now expected to speak a different language and understand what all of those other people who are speaking that language are doing around you. So I think that coming to us, she's got a really decided advantage from that standpoint. She brings to the department some unique experience also coming from an agency that was a smaller public safety agency and understands the community service aspect of the job. So she does have also background in customer service. In conducting her background investigation, universally those contacted felt that she has the highest integrity and capability to do the job. I heard many positive comments from previous employers, neighbors, and friends, such as Tara has a strong moral conviction. She was an exceptional employee of the utmost professionalism. She was always compassionate and a team-oriented person, and that Tara's devotion to her job, family, and the community, she serves second to none. So I'm quite confident that Officer Luskovich will be a valued member of the police department's team of highly dedicated officers. If I could please get Tara to come forward for the ceremonial swearing in, and whomever she would like to pin her badge on her this evening. Step up there, please. Okay. You'll raise your right hand, please. Our staff photographer is ready. I, your name,
Tara Luskovich,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will, during my continuance in office,
that I will, in my continuance in office,
to the best of my skill and ability,
to the best of my skill and ability,
faithfully discharge all duties
faithfully discharge all duties
which may be required of me,
which may be required of me,
and that I will in all cases
and that I will in all cases
conform to the ordinances of the town of Sewalls Point
conform to the ordinances of the town of Sewalls
and
Point
its police regulations.
and its police regulations.
I will, without partiality,
I will, without partiality,
faithfully enforce the ordinances
faithfully enforce the ordinances
of the town of Sewalls Point
of the town of Sewalls Point
and all laws,
and all laws,
and will uphold both the Constitution of the state of Florida
will uphold the Constitution of the state of Florida
and the Constitution of the United States of America.
and the Constitution of the United States of America.
And next is your loyalty oath. I,
I, Tara Luskovich,
a citizen of the state of Florida
a citizen of the state of Florida
and of the United States of America,
and of the United States of America,
and being employed by
and being employed by
or an official of
or an official of
the town of Sewalls Point
the town of Sewalls Point,
and a recipient of public funds
and a recipient of public funds,
as such employee or officer,
as such an employee or officer,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
or affirm that I will support
or affirm that I will support
Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the state of Florida.
and the state of Florida.
Want me to do this for you? Congratulations, we're glad to have you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
We got Tara and Kara now, right?
Yes, it's just making it nice and confusing.
I think we'll stick with first names.
Okay, that brings us to public comment on non-agenda items. I have no public comments on non-agenda items. I do have one for the dock covers, which we'll get to a little bit later. Any additions, deletions, or changes to the agenda? If not, I'll have a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
I've got a discussion. Since we've got a recruiter, Donna, from Daytona, and she's got to drive back, would it be helpful to you to have you moved up earlier in the agenda?
I have no problem with that. When would you like to do it?
Um,
Want to do it right after the consent agenda?
Sure. Would you be prepared to do that, Donna? Okay. I think that would be kind to her. We're working her
Good idea.
really hard, so why not give her a good night's sleep, right?
Okay.
Okay. So then, would you accept that as a friendly amendment?
So move.
Have a second?
I'll second that one.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Campo?
Aye.
Commissioner Fender?
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Okay, that brings us to the consent agenda. Do you have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So
Uh,
move.
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Oh, discussion?
Can if you want.
Okay, I'd like to pull the items on the debris removal.
On debris removal.
There's 2 items.
I will adjust my motion to that effect.
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Campo?
Yes.
Commissioner Fender?
Aye.
Okay, Commissioner Campo, you want to discuss?
Yeah, I don't think it'll
P&Z?
take long, Donna. We'll just handle that. As a commissioner, and you all were probably on the commission at one point when there was a hurricane, but at one point we had a debris removal conflict at the time of storm. The number 1 contractor was going to Mississippi or something like that. So I just wanted Joe to tell us who we have lined up and how deep their capabilities are, make sure that we're not left. It's probably the thing that most people have knocked on my door personally about, pulling the debris from their front yard when the storm comes. So I want to make sure that we've got lots of capacity, if you wouldn't mind. I know we're just extending these, but that would be something that would be helpful since it is the season.
Correct. We are in the hurricane season, as you know. First of all, Joe Capper for the record. What you have in front of you is basically an amendment to their contracts. Several years ago, we did learn from the problems we've had in the past, basically. And so we did create a new contract for the debris haulers, essentially requiring them to put enough crews out here on the site and so forth. And we also set it up basically so that we had a primary debris hauler firm and the backups. And we actually had 2 backups. We're down to now 1 backup. But just so you know, Sunshine Land Design is quite honestly the backup for the debris hauler. They're a local firm, as you know. So what normally happens when we have a hurricane is the few days before the hurricane, we get prepared for that. And we basically can get some money back from FEMA for that, get in preparation and so forth. And then, so we've kind of forewarned all our contractors to be prepared even long before that. As soon as hurricane season comes, we kind of remind them, okay, this is hurricane season, you're our primary provider, and then who's our backup provider. So those things have been already in process, okay? So we're ready for the hurricanes per se. It does still take some work by town officials and so forth to be ready for an actual hurricane, but the fact of the matter is we have, the way the FEMA works is, first of all, you prepare for the storm, and then after the storm hits, you have about a 72-hour period that you kind of clear the roads, just to make sure people can get back into their homes and so forth. And we have 2 contractors for that activity, and the first one on that is Sunshine Land Design. Obviously, they're a local firm, they're here, they'll get that done quickly, okay? And usually they stage a piece of equipment here in town, at Town Hall for that. So that gets us to the first period of time, and then the next period of time is when we actually start hauling debris. Typically, the way the debris gets hauled is obviously we have to measure trucks and so forth that they bring out here, but we take it to the Martin County landfill, and we stockpile it there, and then after we're finished hauling all our debris, basically, then we have to take it and basically grind it up and dispose of it at that point. And again, we pay two things. We pay for getting it there, and then we pay for basically what you say is grinding up the material and so forth and hauling that off. So the primary contractor for that is Custom Tree Care. Okay, they've got many resources. They're from out of the area, but they have already been in Town Hall, talked to Dan. We went through what they can do. They're very up on FEMA requirements and so forth, and they have already responded. The backup will be Sunshine Land Design, but we probably won't need Sunshine Land Design to be a backup because the firm is pretty large. That's Custom Tree Care. I can't say that somebody will not show up because that has happened to us on 2 occasions. But the fact of the matter is that's why we have 2 firms out there. So we
And Waste Management has some responsibility here too, don't they?
Pardon me?
Waste Management?
Well, they have responsibility for your material, your garbage, okay? They still have to perform, okay? But we don't actually use them for debris hauling per se. Unless you want to, you can actually, we have, having worked with Waste Pro, who's given problems for Port St. Lucie, you probably heard about that.
Let's pass on that.
Stay away on that.
And I've worked with Waste Management, and sometimes we have called them in to supplement. Because what normally happens is these firms, they're looking for help, right? So if a hurricane hits the Treasure Coast, it could hit many municipalities, and they're all scrambling to find workers. And so sometimes in scrambling for workers, we actually ask the garbage haulers if they'll help out. And sometimes we've used them, and sometimes we haven't. But their hands are usually pretty full just getting rid of garbage and so forth. So they normally don't have the right trucks, to be honest with you, to haul the hurricane debris. So I can tell you all sorts of stuff about this. I mean, obviously, as soon as the material goes, we monitor it. You also have another firm that does monitoring too. So you've got plenty of people monitoring as well as doing the debris haul.
Mr. Fender?
So, thanks, Joe, appreciate it. We've been doing this a while, and we put these bids out some years ago. So I'm curious now, in the brave new world of inflation and rising interest rates and everything, what the impact of the current economic situation is on the contracts we have in place.
Well, none of them have told me, but I don't know if they've told them.
I mean, are they locked into the contract rate that we locked them into 3 or 4 years ago?
One of the vendors, Custom Tree, signed it as it was proposed, and then Sunshine proposed a significant increase in theirs, and that's in the amendment. So
this gets increased annually, or?
No, it's.
This is a new bid?
Well, it's a renewal, amending the terms
Of the
original
renewal of the
bid
waste.
from 4 years ago, or 3 years ago.
This is, so there's a new waste?
Unit price. They're allowed to adjust the unit prices.
Yeah,
What
it's a
they
new
do.
unit price on each of the things.
Okay.
So it's normally priced per ton. It's priced
All right.
based on poundage initially.
So do we have any idea of the impact of this? I mean, say we use it, and it's pretty significant. If we go through another Francis and Jean, what's,
Well, they proposed an 18% increase, which is significant,
so
but,
18% is what we're talking about?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
But we have to have them, one thing, and then
Yeah.
secondly, the reason we go through this elaborate process is because in order to qualify for reimbursement by FEMA. So that's,
Okay,
so ultimately, if we grovel with FEMA enough, we'll get reimbursed.
understood. Thank you.
Good question. Then I'll move the consent agenda, including those two items now. If that-
second it.
Please call the roll.
Mayor Tompeck,
Yes?
Vice Mayor Kurzman,
Yes.
Commissioner Campo,
Aye.
Commissioner Fender,
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes.
Okay, so that brings us to item 10C, which is the town manager search update. Mr. Hudson, would you like to get us rolling?
Sure. I think just for the benefit of just recapturing what has occurred, we went through a recruiting and selection process. Everyone was very diligent, but unfortunately, in the last hours of the process, we had 3 out of 4 candidates pull away from it, and so it's been reopened. This item is for discussion and direction. We have some dates. It's been re-advertised with a closing date of June 27th. And then on June 30th, Mercer is going to submit well-qualified candidates. Our anticipation is that that would be the time period that the HR avatar evaluations would be done. And then on the 5th, by the 5th of July, then the commissioners would select your finalists to interview, and that would be the intent is to do that by straw poll, kind of like we did last time, only just forego the special meeting, so. And then we would do the more extensive background checks in this time frame. We're scheduling the interviews and meet and greet for July 20th and 21st. As Ms. Higginbotham and myself have been communicating back and forth, we're going to try to keep it this time where we'll do the meet and greet on the first day, on the evening of the first day, and then the afternoon of the first day, we'll have some staff interaction, give them a tour of the town and things like that. And then the second day, the 21st, will be devoted to interviewing and doing the one-on-one individual interviews, and then reconvening at the end of the day in a special meeting to finish it out, to make the final selection. So, and then a new manager contract could be in place as early as 7/26. Just a couple of other comments. These are things that have kind of come to our attention, either from commissioners or the candidates, or just other comments. There's a comment, I'm just going to present these as comments, and the audio allowance may be too low. The vacation may be too low for very experienced candidates. And there's also a clause in the auto insurance in the contract that may be problematic. And then also a suggestion in the review and evaluation segment would, perhaps the commissioners may want to contact other commissioners directly, rather than just having the people, follow up interviewing
Commissioner,
references.
not with
So-
Sewalls Point.
Right,
Right.
right. And then, then there's a question of how many candidates do you want to pick for the final interview process? So that's kind of an overview of where we stand. So we're just looking for discussion and further direction.
Commissioner Campo. Oh, I'm sorry. Donna, would you like to add something to that before we go off on our own? Okay. Commissioner Campo.
First of all, thank you for everyone that's been patient with the process. I think we're going to end up getting the very best, and we appreciate all your hard work. I think we did the right thing, and I appreciate the expedited timetable, because I think at the end of the day, and we could all sit and give our opinions, but I think at the end of the day, that's going to help us, clinch a deal, because we had 2 candidates get job offers very, soon before we had our end date. So I've got a question, and I kind of agree with these contract matters. I think the auto allowance probably should be 400. I think the vacation probably should be 3 weeks. and the clause in the auto insurance, if that's really an issue, being in the business, I don't think it is, but if that's an issue, I think we could probably be flexible on that. But I have a question, since we are trying to crunch time here, and that is, on the round 2 timetable, Donna, you've got on the June the 30th, Mercer submits well-qualified candidates. Would it be possible for us to see those at that point rather than having to wait for the next step of the process? Would it be okay if if you thought someone was well-qualified, could you flow those through to us rather than bottling them up for the week with the other step of the HR avatar?
Certainly.
Okay.
I can do that. And for the record, I am Donna Higginbotham with the Mercer Group.
Okay. I would like that. Yeah.
Vice Mayor Kurzman.
Yeah, one of the things I'm going to encourage my fellow commissioners to do is what I did before is that there's a phone number on every one of those resumes. What I did is I asked the people, can you give me the phone numbers of the former commissioners that were in your last year as commissioner before the commission changed? And you'll find out a lot of times the manager changed because the commission changed. And like I said, there was one guy, I believe his name was Robert Daniels. The prior commission loved him, but when 2 of the commissioners decided not to run for re-election, another one was replaced, suddenly 3 people came in, they weren't in love with him, so he was out by a 3-2 vote. He actually did a good job, and he came from a town similar to ours, but I was the only one that even caught him on that. And I'd like to see him come back again, if we could possibly bring him back in. I'd encourage everybody to give him a call. I think once you talk to him, your opinion will change. Sometimes when you talk to somebody, you find out what their experience is about. And I'd encourage you to just ask for phone numbers of prior commissioners, and you'll get an honest opinion. Because a lot of times, like I said, the current commission isn't going to give rave reviews because in one case, one commissioner was anti-development, the new commission that came in was pro-development. And so he was gone. And the same thing with the one candidate we loved from over by Miami Beach. He got changed when the commission came in and changed. They figured, oh, well, he's been here a lot of years, he's done a lot of good, but it's time maybe we'll go our own way. And it was nothing negative, but, the previous commissioners that were in office felt bad to see him go. They thought they were losing an asset. But the new commissioners felt, no, we're going to go a different direction right now. We're established, we've got a good foundation, he helped us, time to move on. So if you do make those calls, I encourage you, and this will help us speed along the process, and you'll understand what you have and who you have. Sometimes when you talk to people on a phone ahead of time, you'll find out that either they're not giving you the right answers, and the other thing is, whoever the next commissioner is, we need to survive on grants. Grants are key for this town's survival. And there's people I spoke to that I don't think they're capable. We could probably have them for $100,000, $105,000, but I don't think they could get the grants that we need to survive. And what's happening is we become penny wise, dollar foolish, and I don't want to see that happen. So I feel when you talk to the people, this will definitely clean out the slate. And no matter how they score HR Avatar, whatever it is, I just give everybody the same courtesy. I really appreciate that. And Donna, I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this.
Commissioner Mayfield.
Yes. So I know there were some struggles with the HR Avatar, some of the people, getting it done or getting it done correctly. So I decided to try it out, see what it's like. So I did the Excel one. Well, I think it's a good tool, and I know there are 2 tests. One, I didn't take the one that I believe is administrative and something else. I did the Excel one, and it was very Excel specific. I've been on a Mac for a long time, and I haven't been, working in that industry for a long time, and so I scored average. It's very Excel specific. I think it's definitely a good test for maybe the finance director, or if you're in the tech field. I'm not sure how much value that one in particular is adding to the process, and if it's frustrating candidates, I think that it might be a good idea to just do the one and skip the Excel. I know I know you like those, and I think they're a good tool, but I just found that I was like, and if you haven't taken the test before, I was like, oh, I don't know where to click, and I haven't used Excel, I use numbers. So anyways, just wanted to say that was my opinion for those tests.
Commissioner Fender.
Yeah, so I just want to respond to that. I agree with you. Perhaps my suggestion would be you probably, I don't want to say did it wrong, but the psychology of what we were doing was not about Excel. That's not to show your experience with Excel. Really, the other test is the one I would have liked you to have done, because that is a personality assessment, and
Right.
the Excel is there just to know that they understand how to spell Excel. I don't even really care what the score they get on Excel is. However, I would, if it frustrates them to the point where they can't complete the test or they throw up their hands, I mean, that is a different kind of psychological barrier that I'm also looking for, right? I don't care whether they score great on Excel, or I'd like to know that they've heard of Excel before. It might scare people away and say, oh, well, I know nothing about Excel, so this is not a job I can do. They probably need to know what Excel is in order to do this
Right.
role,
It
is my
just- it
feeling.
gives-
But I understand your
It
point.
gives you 60 seconds, and
Yeah,
you
no,
watch the
it's
clock, and you're like, oh,
ridiculous.
I don't know where to go.
And by the way, it doesn't even work like Excel works. I mean,
Right.
if you're a left-click, right-click person, it doesn't give you the object properties of how Excel
Right.
works. So I agree with you. It's not a great test of what your skills are with Excel, but that is not the reason for the test, is
Okay.
really what I'm trying
I
to say.
thought that was the reason,
Yeah,
and
no, I understand from your point that that's
yeah.
what you thought, but that's what I'm just.
I like the other one.
clarifying.
I'd vote to
Yeah.
get rid of the Excel, but I like the other one. I think we could just
Well,
streamline
what
it
if
a little
we,
bit.
what if we end up hiring someone who is totally adverse to us, has no idea what Excel is?
Hopefully we could get, I feel like they could be I mean, they gotta know some Excel, and they could
No,
be trained.
you would be surprised.
Yeah, but
Well,
this-
I agree, they
and-
should be able to be trained, no
That's
question.
I think that.
But
that would be
to
my-
me, it all seems pretty easy, but apparently it's not.
Well, if you use numbers, not that there are a lot of offices that use numbers, I don't know.
So,
They-
by the way, that's the point, right? This role is pretty numbers-oriented. So we're trying to find people who are not afraid of numbers and actually can put financial models in place to give us some actual proper
Right.
financial goals. Not that test is going to prove that, but if they can't do that and score a 10%, then probably, that to me is it's a weeder test. It's
Yeah.
not a, how good are you? It's a, can you get over the hurdle test? And
Again, I'm just not sure the value if it's putting some
Understand.
people off.
No,
So that would be my vote.
Commissioner, Vice Mayor Kurzman.
Yeah, I kind of have to agree with Kaya on that. I understand what you're saying, Frank, but I just don't want to turn somebody off that could be a great candidate, and because it could be intimidating. Some of it could be age-related. It could be discriminatory towards somebody that might be in, a little bit away from that generation. There are other potential managers that have had the experience, but they had a finance director that was able to do that for them. So, if you have a very competent finance director where they came from, and maybe they didn't have to do that for quite a few years, and they lucked out and had a good finance person with them, to go and put the pressure of having to take a test, and it's always something that somebody could learn. If it means a lot, we could send them out for classes to take Excel. I mean, or you know it very well yourself. You could come in for a few hours one weekend, and I'm sure they'd be happy
Great
to learn.
idea. Frank would be,
excellent idea.
Commissioner Campo.
Yeah, I'm going to have to concur with Commissioner Mayfield, Commissioner Kurzman. In an interview, one of the candidates was surprisingly irate and was kind of a calm, demeanor up until that point. And no, I need to make this point. He said, I remember back when I did Lotus and yeah. And, I think it's a different job market. If you've looked to fill a position lately, I mean, you really have to be flexible. The whole market's flipped, and I understand trying to challenge people's professionalism and problem solving. Right now, we've got a week scheduled for that. So I would say maybe we could do the managerial first component and maybe skip the HR or the Excel myself. I called another candidate that withdrew, and he said, yeah, I've interviewed a lot over the years. It's the first time I've ever had anything like that. So that stood out to that person. So
Okay.
it's a different market.
It sounds like we have a consensus to drop the Excel.
Yeah.
Okay?
Can I just make a point? Just to your points, and I'm not passionate about this, but all those things you said, those are not the people that I'm looking to hire, by the way. All the things you articulated are the reasons why I have that test in there, because I don't want to hire any of those people that have the skill set that you just said is scaring them away. So to me, that's my goal. If they can't problem solve, if they have trouble under pressure, if they're not flexible, they're not the candidate for me. But that's just me, but, and I'm totally cool with your decision, by the way.
You'll accept that as a compromise?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so can we go back to see if we can get a consensus on some of these other contract matters? I know we had talked about the car allowance a couple of times, and previously we'd come to the consensus of, what, $200, I think it was? I don't have it in front of me. Okay, and as a suggestion has been made to raise that to 400?
Yes, price of gas is $5 a gallon. I think it's reasonable, $400.
Well, my recollection is that when we looked around the surrounding areas, $400 was not an unusual number. Matter of fact, it was kind of the norm, so I don't have a particular problem with that.
Neither do I.
Commissioner Fender?
Yeah, I don't either, but I just wonder, did you guys stumble upon the Palm Beach Post article about a week and a half ago? It just happened to be when I was at Publix, it happened to be publishing that day, and they scrutinized every town manager in South Florida, and it was an interesting article to
Well,
read.
that sounds
so-
like a good one.
Yeah, you should probably take a look at that article.
Did it
And-
say anything about the car allowance?
Yes, it did, and then 400 was
Okay, cool.
reasonable.
Okay, so I think even though we tortured ourselves on that several times before, go ahead, Vice Mayor Kurzman.
Yeah, one more thing, and I did speak to Donna about this, is there are actually other towns that are similar to ours that are also looking to hire a town manager. And we can't even compete with what they're willing to pay right now. Juno Beach is one of them. I think, what was Juno Beach paying, Donna, again? I'm trying to read, was it 175,000?
It was
179?
close. It was
Yeah.
in that range.
Yeah, so
161 to 175.
a lot of the towns now are stepping up because they are having trouble hiring. They're going through the same thing we are. It's getting tougher and tougher to get people with the right experience that everybody wants. But it just is, and I think there's a couple of other towns, I'm trying to remember who they were, but right now, we're the lowest payers at the moment that's out there for a town of this type of population.
If I may,
Please.
I read an article last week, and I believe that I shared it with Mr. Hudson, that even this evening, about half of my recommendations are interviewing in another community this evening as finalists.
What conclusion are you making from that?
I'm just making a statement. They're out there looking for the job that suits them the best.
Yeah, of course.
With that being said, as of today, as of 2 o'clock, we have 10 candidates that have submitted applications. 3 of those have previously submitted their applications to the town.
Okay. We're off
We
and
did
running.
have 11, and 1 dropped out this afternoon.
Okay, so you want to talk about vacation and the insurance clause?
Yeah, I think so. Because it seemed to have concurrence on the auto allowance and the vacation. You made a recommendation for 3 weeks.
It's just a suggestion.
Yeah, that's the one there.
Excuse me?
Yeah, remember our last one we talked about the contract, I said, let's go for 3 weeks. I think
Yeah,
that's a
I
good
think
one.
that's reasonable. Anybody else have any?
Did we put it in? Did they get it at 3 weeks, Donna, and think that wasn't enough? Or, I can't remember. Because I thought maybe that was the one we gave them. Was
I
it 3
don't
weeks?
recall the contract specifically on vacation.
Mr. Hudson?
3 weeks is what you had in the last contract you had
Given them.
approved, yeah.
And is the recommendation that vacation, 3 weeks, is too low for very experienced candidates, or? It's not, I think it's not unusual, I've seen it where they've, hired a town manager or, something else where they've given them 4 weeks. I don't think that's unusual. I mean, in the company I used to work for, if you got hired in as director, you automatically got 4 weeks regardless of your tenure. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that. I don't know how the rest of the commissioners feel, but I wouldn't have an objection doing 4 weeks.
I don't have, sorry.
Commissioner Mayfield.
I don't have an objection for that. I've been the one since the beginning saying, make the salary higher. So maybe this is a way to be appealing without making the salary high, we've had some resistance with the salary, so.
The nice thing about vacation is it doesn't cost you anything. The cost is already embedded in your budget, and you have competent staff who can be in charge while they're away.
Okay. Can we, do we have a consensus on 4 weeks?
Sure.
All right. The clause in the auto insurance may be problematic, I'm sorry, I didn't catch what clause that was.
It's an additional insured, so basically it's the first level of insurance before they come after the town's insurance. And we're only requiring $100,000 limits, but
Yeah, I was surprised at that, too.
Yeah.
Most of the organizations have gotten rid of the additional insured.
have gotten rid of it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, what I've done in other situations, it's typically you just provide a certificate of insurance. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to name the entity as an additional insured, so.
Okay, yeah, that would be good.
And they usually do that, we used to require it every 90 days, you'd have to show them you still had insurance.
Well, hopefully it's good for a year.
Or 6 months or something like that, I can't remember.
Or
exactly.
before they want a vacation.
Exactly. Okay, what about do we want to stick with the 4 candidates to be interviewed as we did last time? I know it didn't work out last time, but I still think
Go more.
I think it's probably the right number. You want to do more?
I would do more, based on the experience last time.
It depends on the quality. Yeah, I don't want to bring somebody in. I know there was one candidate we brought in that she'd never been brought in fairness to her. It just, very nice person. But I think if you have 5 or 6 quality individuals, it's not a problem. But what happens if you're bringing somebody in for an interview that you wouldn't hire, it's not fair to bring that individual in if you have no intention in hiring them. And it's, you want somebody that's qualified. If you wouldn't hire that person, I mean, that's my opinion, but I'm here to listen to what everybody has to say.
Commissioner Fender?
I don't think we would invite anybody in that we wouldn't consider to be a reasonable candidate. I don't think that's the question here. I think anybody that comes to the table that we believe is a reasonable candidate, we should interview, and I think probably having 4 was too few because 3 dropped out and we had 1 left. I think you might want to go 5 or 6. In case 3 drop out, you might still have 3 left. And they should all be, as you said, reasonable candidates.
What if we asked the recruiter to bring in up to 6 if she felt they were qualified to serve as manager? Would that be a good
That's the point.
mix? Okay.
Commissioner Mayfield?
You said bring in up to 6. I thought you were going to do the initial list, the well-qualified candidates on the 30th, which is like the 8 to 10, and then we pick the finalists to be interviewed, correct?
Correct.
Okay. I like 5. 5 commissioners, 5 interviewees.
That's good symmetry. Symmetry is important to me,
Otherwise,
so.
someone drops out is the issue, right? We're losing some.
Right. Right. And they have. That's why I think it's better than 4.
If I may, you will have all of the resumes that are received, whether they've made my recommendation list or not. So as you did previously, there was an applicant that was not on the recommended list that was brought forward.
Who was
to be recommended.
almost our town manager within 5 minutes.
So
Yeah, so we
you always have that option.
Always have that
as well.
option.
Okay, because you see, this time we're going to do the straw poll. We're not going to have any kind of a special meeting to discuss how we want to narrow it down to 4 or 5 or 6. So we need to give Donna some direction once she has the information from us. Commissioner Fender?
Just a little bit separately, there was at the end of the process, we talked about, and it was related to vacations, when the start date would be. I would say, don't give the candidate 3 weeks to hunt around for another opportunity. You know, I would say, let's, once the decision is made that night, let's try to move ahead and get them engaged as quickly as possible. I mean, not tomorrow, they'll have to resign from their existing role, but I wouldn't stretch it out like we were talking about doing because of vacations. I would try to expedite, yeah.
I agree with you.
Donna, how about top 5 with ties, and if we have a couple extra there, we can certainly put them into the mix. Is that okay with everybody?
Yep.
Okay. All right, I think, any other issues that we need to discuss? Commissioner Campo?
Yeah, I'd like to discuss, I talked to one candidate and I said, what were you looking for in order to accept this job? And he told me, and I said, well, if we offered you that, how long until you would give us a decision? And he said a week. And I said, a week? I just said, what would you require in order to accept the job? And he said, yeah, because then I'd have to talk to my wife. And I'm like, we're not hanging around for a week. So I think there does need to be a sense of urgency. 2 days, I mean, that's the important thing about having that contract. And I think there should be a general meeting of the minds while Donna's here, while Dan's here, while the commission's here, that the top candidate is in general, maybe they want vacation 28 days, not 4 weeks, or, maybe they have insurance, or whatever. But I don't want it for us to leave that night and just say, well, here's the range and here are some ideas. Let Glenn work it out and come back to us in a couple of weeks. I think, then we lose the top candidates, we lose the recruiter, and we lose the interim director. So I think we need to add a sense of urgency. I think that they should be able to accept the job in 48 hours, and I think that they should be able to tell us that night, like, what I am looking for in order to accept this position. I want, these benefits are important, these benefits are not important, but I don't want to just, submit the scorecard and then say, it's the top score, Glenn, work it out. I want us to be able to have that meeting of the minds. So I just kind of a more general sense of things. So we don't want to have to go through this all over. We've got everyone that we need right now. And we want to have number 2 available if number 1 has to check with his wife.
I think I understand your point. I think what we tried to do here, we spent a considerable amount of time on the contract, and and each of the candidates will have the contract. The way the schedule is set up now is that between the time we select the person on the 21st, the contract would be approved by the 26th, which isn't a long time. It's probably the next Tuesday, I would imagine, or something like that. I don't think it's, I don't like the idea of negotiating contract terms in an open meeting. Okay, well, I'm just not crazy about doing it that way, and that's why I think we spent a considerable amount of time working on the contract. Obviously, if there's some issues, Glenn can certainly, get with us very quickly, and I'm sure they can be resolved one way or the other. If they're unresolvable, then we will call the second candidate. But I don't like the idea of negotiating with, candidate 1 and candidate 2 in an open meeting. I just don't like doing that.
I don't either, but I would like for them to define for us what they're looking for while we are in session, so that we know, if we're within striking distance. And I think that was frankly part of the problem. So
At the same time, I think, that was, some of the preliminary calls that Donna made gave us some of that information. It wasn't like we were quite completely unaware. I mean, one of them I think we were, but we weren't necessarily given that information at the time.
Okay, well, I understand where you're coming from, and you understand where I'm coming from. I just don't want to push the big rock up the hill and turn around, and then all of a sudden it rolls down, and we thought everything was resolved. So I think there needs to be some, general meeting of the minds.
And I have no objection to, once we've selected the candidate on the 21st, just to ask him in general, you've seen the contract, do you have any difficulties?
Right.
And we can certainly voice them at that time. I just don't want to be negotiating.
I got you. I think we're on the same page.
Okay, great.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Sure.
When I'm interviewing each of the applicants, I do ask them if they have any relocation issues and what type of time frame that they can give when they will be able to start once the contract is approved and when they could start. I've received everything from the following Monday to 2 weeks to they would have to give their current city a 30-day notice. So you would have all that information as well.
Right, that's what I thought. Okay, any other questions on this item? If not, thank you very much and drive home carefully.
Thanks, Donna.
Thank you.
Thanks, Donna.
See you soon.
Okay, so that brings us to item, we have no ordinances, either first or second reading. That brings us to resolutions. And that's item 9A, Resolution 937. That's a resolution which supports House Resolution 7520, introduced by Representative Mast. House Resolution 7520 directs the Army Corps of Engineers to develop a comprehensive plan to eliminate harmful freshwater discharges from Lake Okeechobee. Will the town clerk please read the title of 937 into the record?
A resolution of the Town Commission of the Town of Sewalls Point, Florida, supporting United States House Resolution 7520, introduced by U.S. Congressman Brian Mast and cited as the Northern Estuaries Restoration Plan, or NERP Act, providing for an effective date.
Thank you. Is there any discussion from the public on this one, or any discussion from the commission? If not, I'll, Commissioner Fender,
I'll move to adopt.
I'll second.
please call the roll.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Campo? Commissioner Campo is not present for the vote. Commissioner Fender?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Next item is item 10A, old business, dock roofs exceeding height restrictions. And Mr. Hudson, can you open the discussion on this item and explain the steps to the commissioners?
Yes, thank you. This is part 2 of the dock roof discussion we've been having. We finished the first part of it relating to existing roofs. This sets up a process for a person who is unable to meet the height restrictions that is in the code presently, which mostly affects people on the eastern side of the peninsula. So this item would create a process for them to achieve approval, and we're going to just give you a big overview of it, and then we can have discussion and go forward from there. First of all, it's going to require an amendment to the town code because the way it's worded presently, you're simply not able to achieve a variance in any mechanism presently which would allow for a roof in that situation. So we're suggesting that it would have some basic standards involved in it, including a DEP permit, a town building permit, compliance with all of the other ordinary regulations. The special dock fee would be applicable. That's the one that you recently adopted in conjunction with the other one. And then that it would also be subject to architectural style guidelines, and that a conditional use permit is required. So that's what we would be looking for in the code to set the legal parameters for it. And so there's a few things I'd like to just go over, and then we can come back and discuss it. one question that's raised is, should canals be treated differently from those on open water? It's just a smaller, more narrow, you have neighbors across the canal from you in addition to either side. Next is establishing a style guide. We have put together a suggested style guide. It's no pride of authorship there. It would be adopted by resolution, and we can, go over that in detail that we need to. The recommended procedure is to use a process called a conditional use permit, which is already part of your code. Basically, it creates an opportunity for a person to get something that's not normally allowed within a district. And so that's basically what we have here, is someone is trying to get something accomplished that's not normally allowed. So although the town has not, there's probably nobody sitting up here who's ever seen one in the town of Sewalls Point, but it's actually a very common procedure in other municipalities, both in Florida and throughout the country. So basically, it's one that has operational, physical, or other characteristics that are different from the permitted uses, but it complements or may otherwise be compatible with the overall development, assuming certain standards are met. So the way the conditional use permit, or CUP we'll call it for short, is in the town's code currently is that it goes to the Board of Zoning Adjustment, and they would make a judgment about whether the application meets the criteria or doesn't meet the criteria. It's normally done with 2 hearings, ordinary public noticing. You also have the riparian noticing that would need to be taken into consideration. But ultimately, the BZA would be the ruling authority in that case. There is a fee attached to it. It's $1,000 presently. That's way too high for what we're talking about here. So as we review this, and if you want to move forward, we would probably seek to lower that very materially. So there are some alternative procedures. The alternatives that we've looked at it would basically cause us to have to enforce the style guidelines on the entire peninsula, both east and west, and so that creates conflicts with existing places that have already been built, and so I would recommend sticking with the conditional use permit. So if you're in agreement with this generally, the next steps would be to proceed with the ordinance amending the town code as we've described, review the proposed process with the BZA, because we haven't discussed it with them, that we're getting ready to give them a new task. So we'd like to get their suggestions. You would need to approve the style guide by resolution once we've had a chance to review it and digest it. And I see the style guide as something that you would want the BZA to have, some latitude in rendering its judgment. And then we'd want to reduce the CUP fee to a reasonable level. So that concludes the overview, and we can tackle any of these that you'd like to discuss.
Okay, before we do that, we do have one public comment. John Nemi.
Good evening, John Nemi. First, I've been reading what all the updates on this, and it's quite a lot of progress. I do say it does a lot better job at what was first being put out there. It really does a good job, and I think in number one, kind of equalizing what homeowners can do, whether they're on the east or the west side, in a reasonable use of their own property. I think it does a lot for aesthetics. I think having that in is really important, so that we have most reasonable homeowners in the area aren't going to be objecting to this. I only have really one comment when I was reading through it, was on the square footage. So at least what I have for my own dock has to be mounted onto the frames of the boat lift. That's part of the DEP requirements for that. I have I would say a medium-sized boat lift, 13,000 pound. My pilings alone are spaced a little bit over 16 feet wide. With the bit of overhang that they allow for this, most lift covers are going to be about 18 feet wide. So if you have a 300 square foot limit, if you do the math, it's not really gonna look really good. It's gonna be kind of an odd shaped look to it, and it's not gonna cover much of your boat. I think most people are probably in boats in the 20 to 30 foot range, and you're probably gonna get about a 16-foot cover off of that. So that may need to be looked at, maybe either set a maximum length or something to be, I think, more reasonable. But otherwise, I think it's made a lot of progress and looks good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Campo?
I agree that we've come a long way. I haven't really drilled down on a lot of the specifics, but I'm glad that we're able to keep moving on this. And might be chasing a rabbit, but since the conversations come up before about the sunlight, I wonder, and whenever you open up the subject, something comes out, but what would it take, and we might want to talk to Jack about it, but what would it take for a requirement to change in our codes so that docks were built out of the lattice-like material where there can be sunlight that shines through rather than pressure-treated wood? Have you seen that? It's like a commercial, for lack of a better word, plastic.
I thought and correct me if I'm wrong, Jack, but I thought the DEP requirements now for docks have spacing on the planks to allow sunlight through. Isn't that correct? That's a requirement. You can't have the planks.
DEP has put that on some of the docks, correct, the spacing between, to allow the sunlight through.
Okay.
But as far as any of the other material, I'm not aware of anything else that would, they're even getting away from the pressure treated, they're going with the recycled plastics.
That's what I'm saying, but there's, it's kind of like a webbing or tic-tac-toe board or honeycomb or,
I haven't seen that.
you haven't seen that?
I do know that the DEP does dictate the spacing in between
Okay.
each one.
Jack, the weapon that you're referring to is very expensive.
Oh, for sure.
Very,
It's
very
definitely more
Yep.
expensive than pressure.
If it's really expensive, then Stephanie, you should get it. And tell John I said that.
The DEP also raised the minimum height as well to have less effects in terms of gravity. Those are the two things.
Vice Mayor Kurtzman?
Yeah, I could be on board with this, but there's one thing I would like to see. I would like to see, I guess it's the Oceanographic Society that we have up the road over here, to come in and check the space for seagrass within, let's say there's no seagrass within 1,000 feet. I don't know if you got the emails, but I did with the Vote Water. They actually had seagrass is starting to revive in the area. The waters are getting much cleaner because we haven't gotten the discharges that we've had coming from Lake Okeechobee. We actually have seagrass now coming in at the Stewart Sandbar, which they haven't seen in, I think it's 20 years. So the water is getting cleaner, seagrass is reviving itself because we're not seeing the discharges. I would like them to come in and take a look. I'd like for them to give us the approval.
Well, I think that's one of the things we're doing here. We're not going to accept anything that the DEP has not accepted. And once again, we're not going to be the ones that are going to be doing seagrass surveys.
Well, let me go back on the history with the DEP, why they changed it. This goes back to when Governor Scott was our governor. And the reason why he changed it is that's when we went through the housing market crash back in, I think it was 2008. And he lifted that so that people could get back to work because the construction business was way down. Nobody was building homes. The market was very depressed. So they changed that back then for that reason. And that's why the DEP changed. They were very strict before that. I just would like them to sign off. Whenever anybody puts an application, I think it would be a nice thing to have them sign off. And we charge a fee to give it to the Oceanographic Society as they check for seagrass. If there's seagrass growing within so many feet of where the proposed dock's going to be, why would we allow somebody to build the covering? That's the only question I have. If it's not there, it doesn't matter. But if it is there within a certain amount of feet, I definitely feel that it's some consideration.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes, I agree with the mayor that, we had said that the DEP would be in charge of determining those things because I think that's a slippery slope that would be not really, the town wouldn't be good at judging that. That's not really our area. As for the recommendations, I do think docks on canal should be treated differently in the inland waters. I don't know exactly how to do that yet, I'd like to talk to people, but, the canal, and I've talked about it with the town manager, the canal on Island Road and East High Point is small, and I'm not sure how that would look, so I think those bear some looking into. So yes, I do think they should be treated differently. Whether it's a width thing, like if you're this far away from the person directly, something like that, but I haven't looked into it enough to give any guidelines. Delegating decisions to the Board of Zoning Adjustment, I think that seems reasonable. And we talked about a reasonable fee. I was talking to the town manager, he had mentioned $100 to $250 for the conditional use permit. That seems fine to me. And yes, I agree, the conditional use permit is the preferred method, so.
Commissioner Campo.
Yeah, so as far as Commissioner Kurzman's comment, when someone wants a permit for a home, they come in with blueprints. When someone wants a permit for a dock, they need to have a survey of the ground area underneath their dock, and it needs to include a survey of seagrass. So that's part of the permitting process. But getting back to the questions, should docks on canals be treated differently? I don't have a strong opinion. Delegating the decisions to BZA seemed like a reasonable approach, yes. What is a reasonable fee for a conditional use permit?
Since we haven't done any, we really don't know the answer to that question, right?
That's why I asked the town manager.
Well, all I'll say is, our property values here are based upon people wanting to be close to the water and access the water. So I don't want to penalize someone because they want to use the access to the water with, a high fee. The conditional use permit fee is in addition to the other permit fees?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, you
Okay.
have already in your codes and resolutions, a conditional permit
Right.
fee.
So, I don't know, maybe
It was
5.
probably just copied from another jurisdiction, quite
Yeah.
candidly, just when I looked at it.
Okay, we have one other public comment. Stephanie, do you want to?
Yeah, I just want to say, you don't know who I am. But I did speak with the director at the Oceanographic Center, Florida, who does the seagrass restoration. I had a long, extensive conversation with her about a month ago. And I kind of wanted to know what her thoughts were. And her thoughts regarding the dock covers, especially the ones that we have, didn't have an enormous impact. That's not what she felt we really needed to address. She felt in Sewalls Point what we really need to address is septic tanks and drainage, that the water stays doesn't flow from our peninsula back into our riverways. And those were the two things that she really wanted to address and wanted me to know and for me to express, that it really wasn't the covers that was killing our seagrass. It's everything else that we're doing. And she was happy to come and represent her thoughts at any point if anybody's interested in hearing what she had to say.
She did a great presentation for us previously, and it was obvious to me that the major issue is the clarity of the water, and what's causing those problems is mostly stormwater runoff and septic.
Yes.
It's not
and
the covers that are causing the problems.
Nothing has changed from that. I just wanted to make that clear.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioner Fender?
I'm fine with all of this, but I'm really interested in the style guide. And I see you've got a few things on the style guide in here. And I'm kind of a proponent of not reinventing the wheel. I'm wondering if we took this from somewhere, or if we can take someone else's style guide and enhance it or adopt it, and maybe include some of the good ideas someone else might have. But maybe you can just educate me on how we came to develop what we have so far. And I think it answered, completing the draft of the style guide might answer some of the canal issues and things like that.
I don't know that we've actually been able to find other jurisdictions that have something similar to this. I've not. I don't know if anybody else in their research.
I can't imagine that this doesn't exist in the wide world somewhere. I mean,
Well, maybe it does.
yeah.
Finding it may be another.
Use Excel?
Yeah. I'll take a look.
Is there something specific that you,
No, I don't know how to draft a style guide for this, so I would always go and try to find somebody else smarter than me who's done it before. That's just my point. So it looks like we've got a great start, so great job, but
Yeah.
I would like to see others.
Yeah, I tried to find someone else smarter, but there wasn't anybody, so.
And the style
In your
guide,
case, that's always the case,
the
but
style guide would come as a separate resolution to us anyway, right?
Correct, yeah, yeah, but if there is guidance, any general, even general guidance that we can put into effect. I know that the attorney's office had surveyed several jurisdictions around the state, and I've looked and just haven't been able to find anything similar.
interesting. Okay.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes, I was going to say, I think $200 seems like a reasonable fee for the conditional use permit. And like I said, I'd like to look into the docks on canals being treated a little bit differently also, because I think it is an issue. And then about the style guide and the public comment about the size. I was talking to the town mayor about that also, town manager. Yeah, we need to maybe come up with the square footage. Remember we talked about the square footage?
Yeah,
Public
yeah,
comment mentioned it,
I admit that was just a stab in the dark.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was-
So just work on those, the canals and the style guide, and in the meantime, do the rest.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yeah, what I would suggest is that we have a subcommittee, that somebody puts this together outside of the commission, and we get their feedback and suggestions, people that know more than we do. And I'd be open to that. And somebody that has more time to do the research and the background, just like we've heard before from the folks that just came up and spoke, I'd rather have them, they seem to be very in tune to this and a lot more educated. And if we get more people like them to put something together, I'm sure we can get a good presentation, and we'll learn a lot that way.
Okay.
I have very little knowledge on this personally, and I think the only one of us up here, I think, has maybe a knock in the back, so I have no clue how it works, what would hurt, what would not hurt. And I'm afraid of making the wrong decision on this because I just don't have enough knowledge. I'm still picking up bits and pieces and conflicting stuff, and I'd feel better if somebody else were to do it and is willing to put more time and effort and research, and I'd be willing to listen to that. And I think we could get a lot better input doing this because they're putting more of the effort and time into it.
I see a volunteer in the second row over there with the blue shirt. No, not the guy behind you, Jack. Maybe you can do a little more research on the style.
Yeah, I'm just thinking there's also a Marine Industry Association along the Treasure Coast, so they might be a resource for that kind of input and guidance as well, so.
I wouldn't mind seeing the residents involved too, though. I
Yeah,
feel that would be a
yeah.
nice thing to do.
Maybe like neighborhood HOAs, like waterfront neighborhoods? Do HOAs have things like style guides as opposed to trying to go to other municipalities to find one? I'm just,
Well, for roofs for.
dock, yeah.
We're
for-
talking about roofs for dock.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Waterfront, waterfront neighborhoods
We-
might have that.
We can look.
Okay.
Maybe we want to do something a little more uniform or like limit the amount of colors. I mean,
I think they did limit the example here only has blue, white, and gray, and beige.
maybe.
I confess, I'm not the person to be picking colors or
No.
style.
No black or flamingo pink or purple, good.
But that's also with the concept that you would give latitude to the BZA to add to the color palette.
Yes.
Okay, if we have nothing else, then I think what, we've come to kind of a resolution to move forward with the ordinance and do a little more looking at the canal issue. And maybe also the issue that was brought up about the size, 300 square feet will not be enough to cover a 20 or 24-foot boat or whatever. So maybe we can come up with something a little bit different there, but let's go ahead with the ordinance.
Okay.
All right, that brings us to 10B, which is the Phase 3 update on the South Sewalls Point Road project. And I guess, Mr. Capra, Dan's going to defer to you to give us that update.
Good evening, Commissioners. Again, South Sewalls Point Road, Phase 3. I think you all know we kind of have in the past, well, first of all, we have good news. We got grant money in process. That's moving along. But now we have to make a decision what we're going to build. So I did reach out to the property owner on 78 South Sewalls Point Road and just to find out if we could make some kind of arrangement. And my memo tries to go through a little history. Probably gets a little boring for all of you. You've kind of seen this numerous times. You know, where we started, obviously reminding you all that there are 3 components of stormwater management. Basically, storage, treatment, which is the retention or the exfiltration or maybe baffle boxes, conveyance, which gets the water down the road and basically, and then finally discharge, gets it into the river, and we'd like to try to control that so we don't have sea level rise backing up into the outfall channels in the conveyance system. So anyways, you know, without the, you know, we have a retention area in the area of the Homewood subdivision. I believe we should embellish on that, provide treatment and storage, more storage and treatment. We have some area there. We may have to impact some of the vegetation in that area. Again, we have to meet a certain criteria of stormwater treatment. We also have to meet a certain criteria for flood control. And what makes it hard without an outfall is basically we're piping the water to 2 outfalls on either side of the project, and that's quite a long way. Basically, the pipes will get rather large. At the same time, you know, we still have the problem with basically getting the water levels down. So it's my recommendation that we continue on with at least getting an outfall through 78 South Sewalls Point Road. It'll be consistent with what we've already turned in for permits. It'll be consistent with what the grant agencies have seen already. And I believe that's the best we're going to do is using the outfall at that site. So that's what I'm recommending to y'all. With that, we could move, again, I've only had one conversation with the owner. Obviously, I would assume the manager as well as the attorney will want to set up an agreement with that person and come to an agreement on the price for that easement. But that would be my recommendation as we move forward with that and get the project under construction as soon as possible. So I'm sure you have a lot of questions. So.
Commissioner Campbell.
My question is always the same thing, how much? But not only how much money, but how much water filtration are we going to get? Is it enough? Is it going to disqualify us from the money that we've been getting? And where are we going to store the water if we're not storing it in an STA? And are we still cleaning it if we don't have the STA?
We are going to create, my plan is to take what is a wet, dry stormwater area that's on the west side of South Sewalls Point Road right there at Homewood, and we will create an STA in that area. We will need to do that because an STA does provide nutrient load reduction. Having just a retention area or a lake doesn't do that. We have to provide planting, and so I'm talking about creating a sizable wetland right at that same location. That's right there.
Would that involve digging deeper or putting a mound for more containment of larger?
Well, we were always going to put a higher bank in that area, not by a lot, but maybe as much as a foot in some areas. It does mean that that area will have water in it, just like any stormwater treatment area. Just like the one we have right here at India Lucy. That isn't set up as a stormwater treatment area, as you know, but essentially we will plan on having water in there. And obviously the idea is to keep moving that water so that we don't have problems with stagnant water. So that's the intent. So again, that will provide the same amount of treatment that's required for the stormwater grant funds that we're going to get. But remember, one of the main objectives here is flood control. That's the HMGP, and we have to still raise the road. We still have to provide storage, and we still will have to discharge. And one of the problems we have without having the outfall from 78 is we don't have a way to discharge the water, and we're going to have to do that. There's no way around that.
Right, but I didn't get an answer to two of my questions, so I'm going to state them again. How much water storage are we going to get, and is that going to disqualify us from the money we're getting? That was one question. Second question is, how much is it going to cost us? And specifically, we paid for 2 appraisals. Didn't it break down how much we were going to be paying for that, that aspect?
Okay, first of all,
I'm sorry.
we are going to get as much stormwater quality treatment as we got with the STA, because I have to provide that. We are going to get...
We are?
We are going to get just as much, because I'm going to make a stormwater... Before, I wasn't making a stormwater treatment area out of that retention area I already have, okay? So I will get as much stormwater treatment as in that stormwater that area across from Mrs. Riley's property as we were going to get from the STA that we were going to create on those 2 properties.
And the people that are giving us the money, the state agency that Chloe got, will be satisfied with that?
That's what I have to prove to them, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
As far as cost, I believe the cost will be less because, first of all, I will not have to buy the retention areas or the SDA areas on the lot. You are correct, the 2 appraisals, I gave a number for an outfall easement.
Okay.
And I did some quick numbers based on the price per square foot that either one of them had. And just so you know, it seems to be from what I read there, and it's always up to the landowner, it's under $200,000.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Thanks, great job.
Well,
Vice Mayor Kurzman.
we got to get it done.
Do you think that Mrs. Riley was receptive, though? That's the main concern.
She was receptive when I spoke to her about it, yes. She's not in town right now, but she talked to me about it, and I told her what we were talking about. I will send her some pictures of what I'm talking about, because, you know, we are going to be providing an outfall on the south side of her property, which is an underground pipe system, but when we get to the river, we will have an outfall area that's, in the past, we've put a weir, which is sheet piles with concrete and riprap rocks. I'm thinking of changing that to something even on all of the outfalls now, where we can make it a little easier for maintenance and making it more concrete, so we can clean it out. So we are, you know, I intend to show her this is what we've built in the past, and this is how we have had to hide it so that you don't see it from your pool deck. So that's the presentation I plan on making to her.
And if she winds up being a no-go, how far down could we make the outfall? In
How
other
far
words,
down?
how far out can we go for this to work? I'm just looking at, I'm taking the worst scenario, Joe, that's all. I want to know how far north or how far south can this outfall be?
Well, currently we have 2 outfalls 900 feet in either direction, right?
Yes.
So you know, we've spent, better part of 3 years talking to the residents, and everybody has a reason why they don't want an outfall on their property. So I don't see, don't get me wrong, the one gentleman, COVID hit and he pulled out at the last minute. So I know that's an option that we haven't researched again. It's obviously better for me to put it right across the street from the stormwater treatment area, less pipe and so forth.
We'll make it work.
So the point is, that's why I'm recommending we stick with 78 South Sewalls Point Road. And like I said, I'm hoping she will agree to it. We got to as far as talking about how quick we can have it done. Obviously, the other thing is she's obviously wanted to make sure that when we're doing the construction, we protected the site from her pool because it doesn't have a fence like new pools do. We'll do all that. We'll put all that in place. She put in a new fence. We'll put that back in place. So I think, I went to an extension of what we plan on doing. And again, if she says no, then we'll look at that other lot. But that's a ways down. That's 3 lots. It's technically 2 or 3 lots away. And again, there's going to be a lot more restoration in that property than what Mrs. Riley's property has.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes, I totally support going forward to acquire the outfall easement at 78 South Sewalls Point Road and just going, doing your best to move it along as quickly as possible and the most cost-effective manner, because I believe in the project, and these are all just the hiccups along the way, so thank you.
Is there any other questions? I have kind of and not exactly related to this, but it's an issue I've been thinking about, and it has to do with, there's going to be another round of grants coming up, in the not-too-distant future. And do we have, I think each of the departments, whether it be DEP, DOT, DEO, all have schedules for when applications have to be made and this kind of thing. And I'm wondering if we can come up with that. I saw a schedule like that, but I'd sure like to see a schedule like that so that we're aware that what those deadlines are. We can make sure the grant applications are being done and that there's no last-minute hang-ups that have caused us difficulties in the past. And you're laughing at me, Joe, and that worries me, but.
No, it's, okay, so it's, the schedule that you're talking about, we can produce. We have a document that we've started, so we can do that. Let me just say the funding sources we have been successful at getting, okay? DEP, resiliency is now the new term on the DEP one. And as you know, we have to turn that one, and I think it's due in July, okay? That's one on, and we wouldn't apply for it for this project, we'll apply for it for the other phases, okay? So that's DEP resiliency funds. In your lagoon funds, those come due about once a year. I think we made an application on one of the next phases on that one. To get into the federal money, the HMGP FEMA money, basically you have to be on the LMS list, and that's based on storm events that come through here. We currently have phase 3 HMGP grant process, phase 2, and North Sewalls Point Road one with the county. So we have those in process. Those are in a process already. State appropriations is another great fund source, and those are the things that you have to start talking to your state legislators, and Dan's been doing that type of stuff, and so we'll be doing more of that. But basically, you want to be in there by September, because they like to know what you're planning, and that's when you want to start talking to your legislators. I mean, I see all the grants out there. There's money out there. It's a matter of how many things you want to chase, and at the same time, we got to spend the money. You can't keep this money that we already have in line. We got to get it spent, or else they're not going to give us any more. So.
I just don't have any feel for deadlines and what's due when and that kind of thing. That's all I was looking for. And I recognize that just because the grant's there, we may not apply for it because either we can't spend it or we don't think it's appropriate for us. But I'd just like to have an idea of which grants are available and when the applications are due, that kind of thing.
Well, the one thing that we try to stay away from grant funding sources that are less than a couple $100,000 because it's a lot more work for what you get. Now, don't get me wrong, it may be good for a planning exercise, but you've already passed the planning exercises, so at least on what we're doing now, okay? Part of it is once we get these grants, we got to be prepared to provide the match. And so that's the hardest part about this, is making sure you have a match. And we've been successful in matching federal with state money, okay? But, so you kind of got to line them up that way too. So I've told you all this stuff before. It's, I'd like to say that we're moving forward on phase 2, but, we really have to find the land on that one. And we've been concentrating on getting phase 3's land in order. And, we've got experience now what people want and what they don't want. We thought we could get parts of lots, and that fell through, right? So it's really the land is the big issue here. We need to find the land. So we got to have.
Thank you very much.
One final comment before we leave this. We're still waiting for the approval on the grant. Just to remind everybody, we have the 3.4 million Resilient Florida grant, but the other component we've been struggling with is the HMGP grant that Joe refers to. That's $1.7 million, and they have just consistently told us that we cannot make a purchase of land until they give their approval. And so we were able to clear the FEMA question relating to archaeological surveys. Joe gave a proposal that they accepted from that, but now their latest timeline they've given us is August 19th before we'll have any clear answer on approval or not. So
did they say buy or contract to buy?
buy, we couldn't close.
So we could come
We
under
couldn't
contract.
transact money, yeah.
Thank you very much.
Great news,
Thanks,
Joe.
Joe.
I'm excited.
Okay, that brings us to new business, item 11A. That's an amendment to the interim town manager agreement. Any discussion from the commission?
I'll move approval.
I'll second it.
I guess there's no discussion. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Fender?
Aye.
Commissioner Mayfield?
Yes.
Mayor Tompeck?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Yes.
Commissioner Campo?
Aye.
But you didn't think it was going to be that easy, did you?
Well, you never know.
Getting late and I'm hungry.
Okay, are there any staff closing comments?
Yes, just a couple. Let me see, I noted, I don't know if there's, the normal custom is to have a celebration, but two commissioners were recently reelected, so congratulations to the, yeah. Yeah, there were no opposition, so, yeah, so they're automatically reelected. We did get some news on the office building septic to sewer conversion. So we've had the 3601 building by the river has indicated they will sign the contract. So we're just waiting on the two in the middle.
Cool.
That's it.
Yeah, they have the qualification.
Any comments from the attorney?
You have to say something.
Very
nice to be here.
Okay.
We want you to tell us a Glenn Torsivia vote. Come on, no one's listening and we won't tell them. Come on.
Takes good notes. A lot of notes.
Okay, do we have any comments from the commissioners?
Oh, no,
Commissioner Campo?
yeah, I wanted to congratulate Vice Mayor Kurzman for being reelected, and I wanted to thank the staff and my fellow commissioners. I know the fact that I got reelected with no opposition was really more of a reflection of people's satisfaction with our town government. So April, thank you, and Jack, and Joe, and Tina, and Dan. If you all weren't making the trains run on time and making me look good, I probably would have had 6 or 8 opponents, and I didn't. So I give the credit to the commission and the town that I love very much, and I look forward to serving another term. So thank you, and congratulations, Dave.
You too, James, thank you.
Vice Mayor Kurzman?
Pretty much what James said, congratulations, James, and this is something I really wasn't going to do. It was really almost a last-minute thing. I really wasn't going to run, but there's some projects to get done. I just want to see them through, the whole thing. I've been in this part, and I figure it's going to be a few more years before they get done, and I'm very familiar with them, and I'd hate to leave now, and I'm looking forward to the next 4 years. And I'd love to, the staff's been terrific. I really appreciate everybody and my fellow commissioners. Congrats.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved. So we're going to meeting a week from today at 7?
Yes, we are.
That's correct.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank
We're
you.
adjourned. Thank you.